So apparently old people are all committing crimes, and they're the reason why all of our problems are because of old people.
I don't know if you guys have noticed, but people are getting really, really old lately.
Yeah.
Life expectancy has been going steadily up for
What the fuck happened here? What was this, like World War II or some shit? The Civil War?
decades, for centuries now, really. All of these old people are not necessarily living the lives that they thought that they would live at this point. We currently have a record number of over 50s in the UK that are working. We have a situation where around 1 in 4 US adults over 50 says that they're never going to retire. But I want to...
Yeah, that's sad. People never going to be able to retire. Like, for me, I never want to retire. Like, if I can be 80, 84, 50 years from now, 84 years old and still streaming and making content, I will be doing it. Yep. Abso-fucking-lutely. But it's because I want to.
To focus on a different place today, Japan.
Yeah.
Japan is an incredibly interesting
They have this problem worse than we do.
Phenomenon of
because Japan has less fat people, and fat, like being fat is like the like in PoE there's like an ability called Culling Strike, and whenever you get to 10% health or less, if you get hit with an attack that's empowered by Culling Strike, it immediately kills you. Like, fat people are debuffed here, like with Culling Strike, basically. Yeah, it's about how it works.
And how this is driving a wave of crime amongst the elderly as well. There are a significant number of elderly people who are getting arrested and put in prison on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
In order to avoid this combo of being broke and alone in old age. It's like a really interesting case study, even if you're not from there. Because
this has been happening too. It's happened here in the US. Like, guys have, you know, they've like robbed a bank with a banana or something like that just to get like medical care from the police.
They actually have a lot of problems that are worldwide problems, but just dialed up to 11. Japan currently has the oldest population in the world by percentage. Almost 30% of the population is over the age of 65, and something like 1 in 10 are over the age of 80. If you're in a wealthier country, the aging population...
this is why they're old, right? They're walking. It's a bicycle.
If you're in a wealthier country, the aging population is almost certainly a problem. Similarly, they have an insane level of government debt. Japan's debt to GDP ratio is the second highest in the world, just behind Sudan. And I don't know how much you know about Sudan, but they're currently in the middle of a civil war. So they've kind of got a good reason to be
This is one of those African PvP servers.
Bad. Most countries are running just incredibly high levels of national debt, and it's eventually going to become a problem for a lot of places. But because it's not a problem now, we kind of ignore it. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I had this idea of Japan as being like in the future. I think I just watched too much anime.
Yeah, same. Yeah. That's true.
And I had this idea that Japan was just living on another level to everywhere else.
Yeah, we were like,
in a sense,
12.
I was right that Japan is living in the future. They're just living in the worst possible timeline of the future. Yeah. Despite the fact that their prison population has actually steadily been shrinking, the percentage of elderly inmates has actually been rising. The people who are left in jail are older and older and older. The crime rate amongst the elderly has actually quadrupled in the last...
What the fuck?
Few decades. This isn't just a Japanese problem though, and in America you can see that people who were 55 or older made up around
3%, and now it's 15%.
Around 3% of the US prison population in 1991, but 30 years later in 2021 they accounted for 15%. That's a 500% increase, right, in the elderly prison population.
Oh my god.
And it's resulting in this phenomenon where prisons are turning into de facto nursing homes, having to fulfill a societal need that isn't being fulfilled by the social.
This is so fucking dystopian. Oh my god. We're so yes. Are those people with life sentences? I guess so. Like like you could draw like some abstract correlation of like maybe because people are in jail that they're not overeating and they have other like minimized risk factors. But I bet the amount of people that are getting killed in jail is probably still higher than the amount of people that are dying outside of jail. So I don't even think that would work, right? They exercise a lot. They have regimented meals. Like, so then they would be aging more. But like, even that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, that's the best. No, I still think it's wrong, but I'm just thinking out like the best explanation that I could think out. And even that doesn't really, it's not a corollary because Japan doesn't have that issue, right? So yeah, I don't know.
Some prisoners are now actually expected as part of their work duties to act as care workers and to take care of other prisoners who are elderly and unable to take care of themselves. Japan is the canary in the coal mine, a really good preview of what might happen in a lot of different countries over the world. What makes this even more interesting is that Japan's criminal system has a 99% conviction rate. And you would think that this would act...
They get you, they got you.
...as a severe deterrent, especially in the elderly who typically commit fewer crimes than the rest of the population. Crime is one of those things that people usually age out of. But if we look at the specific crimes that the elderly are committing, you'll notice that shoplifting is an extremely common crime for the elderly, and it seems to be the crime
elderly women are behind a surge of thefts in this gray crime wave.
Choose to commit the most. If you commit shoplifting, you're basically guaranteed to go to prison, and if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for a refuge, then you can find it.
Damn, so you go to 10 years if you're stealing shit? Wow. Deserved? I mean, hey, this is the way I see it. Don't steal shit. Everybody knows stealing shit is wrong. What are you doing stealing shit?
Bloomberg wrote a piece on this phenomenon of the elderly getting arrested on purpose. And they interviewed a number of elderly women who had chosen to check in to prisons.
Check in?
This is what they had to say. So these are a few of the people that were interviewed. Mrs. A, who stole some clothing and was sentenced to 2 years and 3 months in jail.
67.
Miss T, age 80, who stole cod roe, some fish, and a frying pan, and was sentenced
80, oh my God.
to 2.5 years. And Mrs. N, who stole a paperback, some croquettes, and a hand fan, and was sentenced to 3 years and 2 months in jail.
Granted, they're not even trying to steal anything crazy.
These people were like repeat offenders, but this definitely still looks like a disproportionate punishment for these crimes, right? This first testimonial is from Mrs. K, age 74 years old. She stole Coca-Cola and orange juice. This was her third term in prison. The sentence wasn't disclosed.
Third term? She's 74 and she's still walking out with shit? Damn!
She has a son and a daughter. This is what she says about her choice to be in
She's
prison.
about that
I was
life.
living on welfare. It was hard. When I'm released, I will manage to live with 1,000 yen, $9 a day. I don't have anything to look forward to outside. This is a pretty on-the-nose testimony.
That's brutal, man.
The
Holy fuck.
experience of going to jail and why this woman at age 74 has decided to deliberately check into a prison effectively.
God damn.
I want to read a longer one.
What
next.
country? It's in Japan.
When I was young, I didn't think about stealing. All I thought about was working hard. I worked at a rubber factory for 20 years and then as a care worker at a hospital. Money was always tight, but we still got to send our son to college.
Yeah.
My husband had a stroke 6 years ago and has been bedridden ever since. He also has dementia and suffers from delusions and paranoia.
Right.
It was a lot to take care of him physically and emotionally because of my old age.
Yeah.
But I couldn't talk about my stress with anyone because I was ashamed. I was imprisoned for the first time when I was 70. When I shoplifted, I had money in my wallet. Then I thought about my life. I didn't want to go home and I had nowhere else to go. Asking for help in prison was the only way. My life is much easier in prison. I can be myself and breathe, however temporarily. My son tells me I'm ill and should be hospitalized in a mental institution and take it easy. But I don't think I'm ill. I think my anxiety drove me to steal.
I don't think they're crazy either. No, it makes perfect sense. You think about it. It's depressing. It is, right? Yeah. It is. That's sad, man. Imagine prison being better. Yeah. Well, I remember, how many of you guys have seen like some of those images of like the prisons in Finland or Sweden or Norway or something like that? And they look better than apartments here in the United States. And everybody says, like, you always see people saying, like, yeah, I want to go there and commit crime just so I can live there. Yeah, a 5-star hotel prison. Yeah, there you go.
This one is a particularly like heartbreaking testimonial because it shows that this problem isn't purely being driven by financial incentives. Clearly, this is a person that lacked a social support network and the appropriate amount of support that they would need to be able to live out their last few years of life in to a decent standard. That's kind of reinforced
brutal,
by
man.
this third testimonial by Mrs. N. She's the one who stole a paperback.
She 80 years old.
And a hand fan. She also had a husband, 2 sons, and 6 grandchildren. And she simply says that, I enjoy my life in prison more. There are always people around and I don't feel lonely here. When I got out the second time, I promised that I wouldn't go back. But when I was out, I couldn't help feeling nostalgic.
Wow. There we go. People missing jail, yeah.
Clearly, this crime wave is not just driven by money. It's also driven by a huge social component. The fact that she's clearly lacking a lot of what she needs in terms of community outside of jail, and that the prison system is not providing an easy way to transition outside of jail. And so people are just going through this revolving door, even in their 70s.
Oh, this happens here too.
Particularly elderly women who are extremely likely to live in poverty. Nearly half of elderly women who are 65 or older who live alone are in poverty, and 29%.
Who the fuck? Like, what? Where the fuck are their sons? What are they doing? That's sad, bro. Like, that's fucking sad. Probably also poor, working, barely surviving themselves. That's brutal, man. Not everyone has kids. Yeah, but I mean, like 65%, right? I mean, like, I'd say a good percentage of them probably do. Like, yeah. They have nothing as well? I guess so. That's brutal, man.
And for senior men.
Fuck.
And it can be easy to think of boomers as being the ones who took everything from us. But poverty amongst old age is a huge problem, and it's clearly a huge driving factor for the people who choose to make this decision. One thing that did surprise me is that a lot of these elderly people who choose to go to prison.
No, like my dad will tell me, like he'll talk to people, right? And they'll be like, you know, what do you have saved for retirement? And these people are like, yeah, I've got 3 bottle caps, you know, a paper plate, and a coupon for a Pizza Hut buffet that expired in 1995. And this is what they're going to retire on. They're 71. You know, like it's a it's a bad time. It's an honor issue. Mothers will not tell their parents they need the money and would rather suffer in silence. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, that wasn't the case with my mom. She had no problem asking me for money. Yeah, I finally, like, I told her, like, my rule was that, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I told her that, like, you cannot, if you spend more than $5,000 a day, you need to let me know so I can talk to somebody to make sure that, like, there's not a problem. Like, that's what I told her, like, because she'd spend money like crazy. No, she never spent that much money, though. She never spent that much money. She never got close to that. But, like, no. But, like, I'm telling you, whenever Pink Sparkles and my mom lived in this house at the same time, it was like an Amazon warehouse. I swear to God. Every morning I would wake up, there would be 10 packages outside. Was fucking nuts. Like, we ran out of room in the recycling bin because there was too much fucking cardboard. Christmas every day, yes. And it was like, oh, just what we fucking needed. Did you buy Magic the Gathering cards? Fuck no, I printed them bitches out. I got proxies on proxy. You think I'm gonna spend $88 for a Tolarian Academy? When I bought a printer for $150? You're getting milk? No, bro, like that girl, like, no, Pink Spark, she had her own. She had OnlyFans. You think she was spending my fucking money? If she was being a good girl, I would take her out and take her to Goodwill. And maybe we could have dinner after that. No, she wasting her own fucking money on that bullshit. Yeah, fuck no. Bro, come on, yeah. I wasn't buying that bullshit. No way. The complicated story? Yeah.
Have families. In fact, everyone who Bloomberg interviewed actually has family, whether it's a daughter or a son or a husband. And yet we're lacking a broader sense of community, or felt that their family didn't necessarily provide the attention and care that they needed. Japan is a relatively collectivist culture, and there are more social expectations to gather as families, but this is being eroded even there. Despite the fact that I said this is a Japanese problem, it's also a problem in a number of other countries. In the US, the problem manifests more amongst people who are homeless, who choose to go to jail.
Yeah, there's plenty. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Choose to keep reoffending in order to avoid the elements, avoid the cold of the winter, avoid danger and risk on the streets. Those who are even more desperate.
Because this is what people would do. Because you also think about homeless people. Some people is like homeless people are target dummies for some people, right? Like they will go and attack homeless people, throw shit at them, beat them up, stuff like that. Because it's like you can maybe do that and beat up on them, and you can maybe get away with it, right? But that's actually some shit. But it's just people are animals. People are animals. Like you gotta remember, like this is not something to be. It's bad. It's disgusting, but it's extremely human. Because people are just terrible. People are horrible.
Of the population who has reached that threshold point of desperation, where going to prison is actually an upgrade to staying out on the streets. It just happens that Japan, given that there's
and it's like you think about it, right? Like let's say you're 64 or you're 64, you're homeless, right? And you are homeless in Arizona. You know what you're gonna be? Beef jerky. That's what you're gonna be. So yeah. You're gonna try and go to jail. You're gonna try and do whatever you can. Dust to dust. Yeah.
These problems has expanded the group of desperate people to relatively normal.
Eat the homeless.
This is actually changing the structure of what prisons are actually doing in society. Japan tests for dementia when you get admitted to prison. It's exposing this huge gap in the social care system. When I first thought about this problem, I asked myself, how much does it cost?
So remember what I was saying before about how universal basic income is it's going to become necessary. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But that's communism, brother. Yep.
To actually keep a person in prison.
It won't work. It turns out, if it won't work, there's a other solution is you have to kill a bunch of people. You have to kill, I would say, 80% of people. So, we could do that. I mean, yeah, we could do that. But, I'd say you have to kill, 80% of people.
That it costs 3.2 million yen in Japan to keep someone locked up for a year, according to the Justice Ministry. It's about double what a person on standard welfare can get, which, to me, is baffling.
So, they're getting paid extra for being in jail.
You have to ask yourself, if they just gave the person that money straight up, would they still have committed those crimes?
Yeah.
It surprises me so much that a country is willing to spend this much money to keep someone locked up like an elderly shoplifter, rather than strengthening the social security net in order for these people to not need to commit.
He brings up a really good point. He's right about this. He's absolutely cooking with this. Yeah, 100%.
These crimes. The structure of crime itself has now changed to such a degree that elderly criminals are now more likely to reoffend than younger prisoners.
Yeah,
and
of course.
The Japanese government is trying to do something about this. They are launching initiatives between the justice sector and the welfare sector and giving elderly people special treatment. But all of these measures are at the entry point and at the exit point of the prison system. While actually in prison, people aren't being set up to succeed and they're simply getting a little bit of support at the start and end. Then it's not really a surprise that they choose to reoffend and they choose to return to the place of comfort that they've learned. I genuinely don't understand why these parts of the social security net aren't being reinforced, especially in a place like Japan.
The problem is that a lot of people don't have, I don't have a lot of the problem is that it's hard to talk about this issue because, for me, I don't really have any sympathy for criminals. I don't feel bad when if somebody commits a crime, I think they should generally go to jail, right? Like, I don't feel bad for them. And like, I always view it's like the goal is to protect society, not protect the criminals. But at the same time, it's like now that you have the criminal in this box, what are you going to do with them? Right? It's like, cause how are you going to solve this problem to where it doesn't continue becoming a problem? It's like both, right? And so it's like, I have it's kind of it's a nuanced perspective. Like, in a way, like I have no sympathy, and I'm like super harsh on people that are like, stealing shit and doing stuff like that. But at the same time, I think that they should, it's like if we can improve their situation so they don't do it again, this is going to solve the problem. Scandinavian countries, the reason why we have good prisons is we want to reform prisoners rather than punish them like the U.S. does. I don't know about... I feel like there's a lot of social reasons. I just don't understand a lot of them, to be honest with you.
I found this interesting survey with Japanese doctors, and they found that 30% of university hospital physicians are at risk of death from working too many hours. They also have a word for this. The solution seems somewhat obvious, and yet there are cultural and political barriers to getting it fixed. The conditions in Japan's prisons aren't great. Solitary confinement is a commonly used strategy, and the life in prison isn't necessarily good. It's just better than what people are living on the outside. I read this paper called Aging, Institutional Thoughtlessness and Normalization in Japan's Prisons. They talk about maybe some reform strategies that we could consider. And I think these are appropriate even outside of Japan, particularly this idea of normalization, which is to make the prison system as similar to the outside world as possible so that people experience the least amount of shock when they transition between the two. One of the ways...
Yeah, it's probably true. You're right about that.
To make it a place for rehabilitation is to have rules that would reflect the rules that you're expected to obey as a common citizen. However, this is a challenging thing for a lot of people because a lot of people do have an idea that prison is not necessarily a transitionary phase. I tried to end on
Well, it's like there's always going to be people that you can't reform, like mass murderers and psychos and shit like that. Absolutely. But I wouldn't really take them seriously or think about, like, that's not really the norm. Like, most people, I think a lot of people steal shit because they want money. Most people, I think, that steal shit, steal it because they don't have enough of their own stuff and they can't afford it. Like, rich people usually aren't the ones stealing shit. Well, they are, but they're stealing shit in a white-collar way. But if you talk about the people that are, like, walking out of Walmart with something in their pocket, it's mainly not it's mainly not poor or rich people. It's poor people, right? They don't have the money. So it's like you solve that problem, and then you solve this indirectly, right? It's a totally different way. Yeah, exactly.
On an optimistic note where I can, but this is a hard one to end optimistically on. What I will say is that social security nets are things that are not preserved by chance, right? They're preserved because people stand up for them. And the easiest way to stand up is to vote, right? It's at least the one thing that you can do. It's worth investigating these things when you're voting in local elections. What is your, local representative doing to build community in your area? What are they doing about social care and elderly welfare in your area? It can be easy to think of boomers as people with privilege or people with everything that we want or we need as a younger generation. But a lot are in the same boat as you are, of just trying to get through the next day, the next week, or the next month.
Well, this is the same as with everything, right? It's like, this is the way that it's always class warfare, right? I think this is the case with almost everything, where it's like you have things where people get fixated on like resenting each other and being angry at each other because, I hate women, I hate men, I hate black people, I hate white people, I hate old people, I hate young people, right? But there's actually really the issue of scarcity. I think scarcity is generally the true root of all evil, right? Scarcity, hate is taught. I don't think hate is taught. I think people are pre-programmed to hate. They're actually like, I like this guy's videos a lot. He made a video, I forgot which one. Oh, it was the video about, I forgot, it was something that changed my opinion. Why people aren't having kids, that's what it was. Yeah, he actually had a lot of like really good introspection on that and like good insight into it. And I think he makes great videos. So absolutely deserves a sub, a like, etc. Yeah, very big fan.